I don't know about you, but it sounds to me like the prophet Elijah in our Old Testament reading today is depressed. I know it doesn't say he's depressed. And in the Old Testament, they don't usually tell you much about the inner state of a person's mind. And in the Old Testament times, they didn't have any word for being depressed or mental illness. But the description of what Elijah is going through sounds like the description of someone who's depressed. For one thing, Elijah had just been through some serious trauma. He's had a confrontation with the king Ahab and the Queen Jezebel. And in the process of all that, all the prophets of Israel, almost all the prophets of Israel were killed. And Elijah himself was the only one to escape. So now he's on the run, and he knows that Jezebel wants to kill him, just like she has had the prophets before him killed. That sounds like trauma to me. He's afraid for his life. He's on the run. He's living in the wilderness as a fugitive. And I think, from our point of view, Elijah has post-traumatic syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. We know about that today. Elijah feels like a failure because all his preaching to the people of Israel was for nothing. They continued to worship the idols. He feels guilty because he couldn't save the prophets of Israel from being killed. And he feels helpless because Jezebel wants to kill him and he has no future. So he runs away. He goes to the very last town of Israel, and then he leaves his servant there, and he goes even further into the wilderness so he can get further away. And he comes to Horeb, it says, the mountain of God, which is the same, it's Mount Sinai, where Moses received the Ten Commandments from God, the holy mountain. And he finds a cave there, and he spends the night in the cave. And in the morning, God speaks to him, and he says, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah says, "I have been very zealous for the God, for the Lord of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Do you hear the self-pity in those words? I did everything you told me to do, and it didn't work. The people have turned away from their idols. Jezebel has killed the prophets, and I alone am left, and now they want to kill me. I might as well die. Poor me. Poor, pitiful me. So Elijah is filled with self-pity, with guilt, with helplessness, with despair, with suicidal thinking. Sounds like depression to me. Depression is a dark monster that stalks you at night. Depression is a thief that takes away everything that gives you joy. Depression is like a lead weight pressing down on you all day. Everybody gets depressed from time to time. It's pretty common. But sometimes depression gets so overwhelming that a person is immobilized. You just can't do anything. I get depressed sometimes. Normally, I have a set of tools in my tool belt that I can use to cope with stress in my life. When things get bad, I'll share with Katie, and she'll help talk me through it. Or I'll go down in the shop and I'll do some woodworking or something, work with my hands, and that's like therapy for me. Or I'll go out and get outside, take a walk. Fresh air is good for me. Or sometimes I'll just think back on times that were better and happier times, and that helps me too. But when I get depressed, all those things are taken away from me. My tool belt is empty. I don't have the tools that I normally use to deal with stress. And all I can do is wait until things get better. I know that they're going to turn around in a couple of 2 or 3 days. I just have to wait. And I know there are many people who experience much more severe depression than I do, and much longer periods of depression. Now, today we know many of the causes of depression, of stress, anxiety, grief, trauma, an imbalance of the chemicals in the brain, which can be remedied, genetics, all kinds of things. But that we don't have an instant cure. There's no cure for it yet. Now, our story says that Elijah spent the night in a cave. I mean, what better metaphor is there for depression? When we're depressed, we just want to get away from everything. We withdraw, we go into a dark place, and we just curl up into a ball and we just wait. That's all we can do. So Elijah is in the cave, and when he's in the cave, he hears this shrieking wind outside, splitting mountains and tearing the rocks in two. But the Lord is not in the wind. And then he feels an earthquake shaking the mountain like a dog's toy. But the Lord is not in the earthquake. Then he sees a flame flash over the mountain, incinerating everything on the mountain. But the Lord is not in the flame. And after the fire, there's a sound of sheer silence. The Hebrew word for that is hard to translate. It's translated in different ways. Sometimes it's called a gentle whisper. Sometimes it's called the sound of sheer silence. Still, small voice. Sometimes we just have to sit in the silence. There's no wind or earthquake or fire or miraculous cure that's going to save us. We just have to sit there and wait. No amount of talk or advice or positive thinking is going to cure you. Or you just need to snap out of it. Don't worry, it'll be better in a couple of days. Just think positive. There's nothing to do but sit in the silence. I think God often shows up more in the silence than in the noise. Sometimes words are just a bunch of noise. It's in the silence that we find God. In the stillness, in the waiting. And then when we're ready, God comes to us. I think that's where Elijah is in this story. There's nothing left except the sound of sheer silence, the stillness, the awareness of his breathing. He finally hears the silence. So Elijah wraps his head in his mantle so that he can be protected from the glory of God, and he goes out to meet God outside the cave. And God asks him a second time, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah answers exactly the same way he did the first time. "I have been very zealous for the Lord of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Well, it's the same answer as the first time. I wonder if Elijah doesn't hear it a little different this time. Maybe this time he hears himself saying it, and he begins to get a little bit different perspective on what he's saying and where he's at. And then God gives him his instructions. He says, it's time for you to pass on your responsibilities. I want you to anoint Jehu to deal with Ahab, and anoint Elisha to be the prophet in your place. And remember that there is a remnant of faithful people in Israel, 7,000, who will carry on the faith. In other words, God lifts the burden from Elijah and he puts it on others. He releases Elijah from his responsibilities. And finally, Elijah is freed from his depression and he can go in peace. If I could give you a gift, any gift in the world, if I could do anything to make your life better, I think it would be this gift. The sound of sheer silence. The still, small voice of God. Because that is a gift that keeps on giving.